What's going on, everybody? A little comparison today. I wanted to compare the new Smith & Wesson M2.0 versus a Glock. Now, I know there's some videos out there already of Glocks being compared to Smith & Wessons, Glocks versus SIG, Smith & Wesson versus SIG. There's lots of comparison videos out there, but I wanted to do my own take on it. And I'm comparing it to a very specific Glock, the new M2.0 to a very specific Glock. I'll get into that why shortly. But yeah, I just want to compare the two pistols. So both of the ones you see in front of you, this is a Glock 22 RTF 2, and this is a Smith & Wesson M2.0. They're both 40 caliber. Now, getting right into it, the reason I chose the two 40 calibers, for starters, they're both the only pistol I have in 40 caliber. But I'm actually a real fan of the 40. I like the 40 caliber round. I think it's a very potent, effective round for what it is. Now, just touching on the caliber, you always hear all those people say, like it's 40 short and weak. It's a cut down 10 millimeter. It's for sissies. All this, all that. But I mean, I'll tell you what. You take two of those to the chest, and look me in the eye, and say it's still a pussy round. I'll believe it, but. Oddly enough, nobody will take that challenge. Weird, right? Same thing with the 9mm. But getting into it, I wanted to compare specifically the Glock 22 RTF2 against the M2.0, primarily for its grip. And that very, very, very aggressive texturing that's on the grip of the Glock 22. It's very, very aggressive. So we'll get into it. I'll go over the pros and cons, kind of things like that. I'm going to try not to drag this on too long. I just want to show people a difference between the new M2.0 and a Glock, or one that's apparently becoming very rare, but I haven't noticed any of that yet. So getting into it, we'll start with the M2.0. Primarily what I want to focus on is the grip texturing. You see the grip texturing on this is very, very aggressive. Now, Smith & Wesson learned from when they originally produced the M&P, the original texturing on these was not very good. Like, it was smooth, it was nice, but as soon as your hands got wet or cold or anything like that, the gun slips right out of your hand because you just can't hang on to the thing. Like, it's a common complaint I hear about at my work. It's just the grip is just not good with the new, or with the older M&Ps. So Smith & Wesson learned, people are always texturing their grips. They're now taking soldering guns to it and permanently modifying their guns. So Smith & Wesson did what any good manufacturer should do, and they listened to the customer. And they've added this new texturing, which is extremely aggressive. Like, honest to God, when you first pick this up, I would actually say it feels more aggressive than the RTF2 texturing on the Glock 22. Personal opinion, some people may disagree. I respect that. But it's definitely a huge improvement over the original texturing on the M&P. And I'm a firm believer when I say this. If Smith & Wesson had have produced this pistol to compete against the Glocks would not have the name they have today. Smith & Wesson had a real opportunity, which the M&P is a great pistol. I'm not going to talk down about it. But it needed to be improved a fair bit, and we see that now with the M2.0. Now, Glock has one thing going for it, and that's quite simply its name. When you hear Glock, like, even the most anti-gun of gun people who know nothing about firearms, know what a Glock is. They know it looks like a brick, and it's unbelievably reliable for what it is, for its price. And that's another thing, is the price of Glocks in general are not expensive. Depending on where you live. In Canada, they're upwards of $1,000, but if you live in the States, you're usually doing pretty good. So let's continue on. The magazines on the pistols. Glock uses just a standard plastic magazine with a stainless steel internal lining. The standard capacity for the 40 caliber is 15 rounds. This one's only 10 because I live in Canada. The same goes for the M&P. Now, the Smith & Wesson, it has a plastic base. Now, this is an actual factory M&P mag. There are Pro mags out there as well, and others. It uses a plastic base, but the rest of it is still, I believe it's stainless steel. Don't quote me on that. And its standard capacity is also 15 rounds. Actually, I'll just leave these out off to the side. Now, working our way up through the pistols, the M2.0 has adjustable back straps. The 2.0 version has 4. The original M&Ps have 3, so a small, medium, and large. The M2.0's got a small, medium, medium, large, and large. The medium large actually fits really nice, which is interesting, but the one I have on it right now is just the small. Now the Glock 22, specifically the RTF 2, the Generation 4 Glocks do have adjustable back straps, but unfortunately they don't do what the Smith & Wesson does and expand in the actual palm, because it actually expands and flares this out. They also have ones that kind of give a more exaggerated beaver tail, but the Glocks, it strictly adjusts the back. The width right here and your length of pull up front doesn't get any smaller. Now the RTF 2 specifically, it's just the grip you have is the grip you get. The Glocks themselves, up to the Generation 3, which this is 3.5, and then 4, have the finger grooves as well as a thumb groove. Generations 1 and 2 do not have that. Now the M2.0, it has no finger grooves, it's just got the really aggressive texturing. It's got a slight, I'm not sure if the camera will pick that up, a slight edge for where your thumb rides, but it's nothing substantial, it's nothing to write home about. Now the Glocks, with the magazine inserted, they leave a hole in the back. A lot of people tend to put plugs and stuff in those, so if the gun jams, they can reach their thumb up and pull that magazine out. Some people put the frame plugs in. I guess it helps them with loading, or they just don't like having a big gap there, so they fill that in. The Smith & Wesson doesn't have that. What it has is a tool at the back that you just take out. You can use this for disassembly as well as for removing the back straps. Very intuitive idea. When Smith & Wesson released these, it kind of set the market for ergonomics and things like that. That being said, a lot of the new videos on the M2.0s, you don't actually see people mention this, is right here. There's actually grooves on both sides of the pistol where you can actually get into it with your thumb and your finger and pull that magazine out if you need. As far as I'm aware, the original M&Ps don't have that. At least I've never noticed it. So, that's a kind of a subtle thing, but I haven't seen any other big YouTubers or anybody mention that. I don't think they realize it's there, because it is fairly small, unless you're looking for it. Magazine release on the M2.0 is enhanced. It is made of steel. It's got some texturing on it. It's nowhere near as aggressive as the actual grip, but it is a very prominent, strong safety. Glocks use plastic mag release. It's nothing fancy. It gets the job done. The Generation 4s have a much bigger, better magazine release. So when it comes to comparing this specific Glock against the M2.0, I would say the M2.0 wins. Now, continuing up, I'll just show you the magazine releases just to make this fair. The M2.0 has a fantastic magazine release. So even with the action lock open, watch how much this mag jumps. Like, these things throw the mags excellent. The Glock, let's do it here. So I'm going to push the button. They don't have a very prominent magazine release. The M2.0 literally throws that sumbitch out of there, which is kind of nice. I think that's a great feature. Now, continuing our way up, let's show you the trigger on the Glock. They both pull right around 5 pounds, a little over, probably 6. The Glocks overall, their triggers will not wow you, but you know what? It's a little spongy, but it's got a good break, at least as far as I'm concerned, and a good reset. It's audible, it's tactile, it's good. The original M&Ps, the trigger pull wasn't the greatest on them. I never... They were gritty. Like, honestly, it felt like you had sand in the trigger when you tried shooting the original M&Ps. This one is substantially better. Now, mind you, it does have a hinge trigger, which some people don't like. The Glock has got a trigger with a tab on it, basically. So when you pull the trigger, it just depresses it. Now the M2.0, let's show you here. The reset on the 2.0 is long, but it's audible and it's tactile. Like, you can see how it pushes my finger. The trigger on the M2.0 is substantially better. It's not anything like, it's like, oh wow, that's an amazing trigger like the Walther PPQ or the VP9, but it is a massive improvement over the original trigger. Now, continuing our way up, we'll go to Takedown. So to disassemble the pistols, they're both very easy. And then you just take your recoil spring guide rod out. Same thing with the Glocks. You just dry fire it, pull it back just a hair, pull down on the tab, off it comes. Disassembly on both the pistols is extremely easy. Maintenance, again, piece of cake. These are not hard guns to take care of. The Smith & Wesson, I would say, would lose just simply because you have to flip that tab down, but again, it's nothing terrible. Now, the slides themselves, with the RTF2, it's got kind of a fish scale kind of cocking serrations to it. I like that. I really wish the Generation 3 and Generation 4 had the fish scale idea. I feel it just gives you a better grasp of when you rack the pistol. I feel that the fish scales are just much better. But it's all personal preference, really. The M&P wins massive when it comes to this. Now, you can see it's got the exaggerated kind of fish scale idea again. But it's very well edged and ribbed. Like, it's so much better. Now, both of these pistols, according to the manufacturers, were designed to be racked. So when you run the firearm dry, you drop your mag, slap a new one in, and you'd rack it. They were never really meant for you to use the slide release, or slide stop, sorry. You can if you so choose, but it's not originally what the manufacturers intended, which is why they gave these aggressive scales on the back to charge or to rack the pistol. Same with the Glock. Glocks were always designed to just over the top and just rack it. Now this Glock specifically, it's got an extended slide stop, different pins, extended takedown lever. The original takedown or the slide lock on the original Glocks, it was just too small. I couldn't get a good grip on it, unfortunately. I'm trying to think what else I can do here. The sights on the M2.0, just a standard 3-dot Novak style, but except these ones actually have a notch in them where you can rack the slide off your belt if for whatever reason one of your hands is disabled. Glocks use a different sight. They use these. I don't know what these are called. I just call it a U-dot box kind of idea. They're combat sights. Like, these are combat effective sights, but they're not bullseye sights. You'd never, at least, in my hands, I'm not a best shot with these sights, and I fully intend to change these out. I don't shoot this pistol very often. I personally, my preference is 3-dot. I have night sights on order for this now. This will probably, depending on how this goes, this might replace my Jericho as my SHTF pistol. But I want to make sure its reliability is good and everything like that. This gun has seen about 200 rounds now. Since the last video uploaded of it, it's been flawless, as you would expect. This Glock has seen probably about, I'd say maybe about 1,000 rounds of just 40 Smith & Wesson. All of it's been firing as the Wolf factory reloads, or factory spec reloads. Again, as you'd expect with a Glock, flawless. Now, to kind of close the video out, getting into something with the 40 caliber is so many people talk shit about the 40. It has the nickname 40 short and weak. Well, like I said, take 2 of those to the chest, look me in the eye and say it's short and weak, I'll believe it. But until then, now I carry an M&P 40 for work. That's my go-to work gun. Not the M2.0, unfortunately, but what can you do? But it's the same thing. Like the gun itself, both these guns are fantastic. You can't go wrong with Glock. You can't go wrong with Smith & Wesson. It's all personal preference. The Glock guys are going to talk shit about the Smith & Wesson. The Smith & Wesson guys are going to talk shit about the Glock. It goes back and forth. And the truth is neither of these pistols are the best for every single person. Some people like the angle of the Glock grip better than they like the angle of the Smith & Wesson. Now you see the Glock is got like that kind of an angle to it. Or the Smith & Wesson is a little bit straighter of a grip. It still has a slight S-curve to it, but the angle is very different from that of the Glock. Some people just don't, or the Glocks just don't fit them. And that's what it is. It's all personal preference. Neither of these pistols are a bad pistol. They're both proven. You know, they've both been doing their jobs well. They're both extremely reliable. They're both very affordable, which is always a great thing. You can't go wrong with having an affordable handgun to trust your life with. But when it comes to stuff like the 40, both these handle the recoil very well. I have fired 40 caliber pistols, more specifically the Ruger SR40, and that thing just beat the hell out of my hand in no time. Both these, especially with this specific grip texturing, handle the 40 so well. I know people do complain about the RTF 2 specifically, just because it starts to rub on their hands. Like, you'll actually see people with calluses on their hands and stuff from shooting, but for me personally, it's not that bad. I really like it. But it's all personal preference. This was kind of just an impromptu video. Just wanted to compare these two. But if you're looking for a good pistol that's both affordable, reliable, and fairly plentiful, you can't go wrong with either of these pistols. The M2.0s, they're not so out here in Canada yet, but they are coming. I highly recommend them. Now, last stop with the 40 is a lot of people were laughing at me when I said in my original video when I bought this in 40 caliber. They're laughing at me like, why would you do that? And I'm sitting there laughing at those people because I've got a 357 SIG barrel for this. I'm heading out tomorrow to get a 9mm conversion barrel for it. So I've got 3 guns in one. So while everybody is still waiting for their the 9mm versions of the M2.0s to come in the country, I've already got one. It uses the same barrel, same magazine, same everything as the original M&Ps. Just like the Glocks. You can do the same thing with this. I can go from 40 to 357 SIG or 40 to 9. Magazines are everywhere. So I'm just sitting here laughing because with both these pistols, I essentially have 6 guns. That's why I like the 40 so much. That's why I bought both these pistols in 40, because it's a very modular caliber. You can go left, you can also go down. You know, if you buy a 9mm, you got a 9mm unless you can get a 22 caliber upper. That's it. You can't really go anywhere with 9mm. And before I close the video out, some people will comment on longevity. Well, how long do pistols last? Or, 40 caliber pistols don't last nearly as long as 9mm. That is true. I can't deny that. This pistol, if I fired 1,000 rounds a day beside a 9mm one, this one will fail first. I'll admit that. I'd be the first to admit that. Same with Glock. Now, mind you, the service life of a 40 caliber gun is generally 25,000 rounds. Most people will never shoot that much. So, just saying. Anywho, that's just a small comparison of the Smith & Wesson M2.0 and the Glock 22 RTF 2. Both fantastic guns. You can't go wrong with either. Any Glocks, any Smith & Wessons. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all next time.